Hey crafters, thank you for joining me today for another upcycle adventure. You probably have noticed that I do love upcycle projects because that means we're taking existing garments and upcycling or refashioning them into something a little different. Maybe a garment that can fit my body a little better, or maybe just my lifestyle or sense of style. This is a great project to do with things maybe from your own closet, if you have some pieces that have never quite worked for you. It's also great to do with things that you've gotten from a thrift store that you love but maybe don't quite fit, or there's something a little weird about it. Maybe you could upcycle it into something that you love. Now today's project is a little bit of an extra challenge because I got the pieces we're working with today for free. I have to take these garments that I was gifted and change them into something that can work for me. It's gonna be a little bit of a challenge, but I think it's gonna be fun too. You never quite know with upcycling. Sometimes you may have to put a lot of time into a garment to transform it. Other times it may be a simple fix. The shirt I'm wearing today was an upcycle project. I'll link to that project below, but it was a men's shirt. I didn't like the collar and I didn't like the sleeves, but I did love the fabric and the color, just thought it was fun. So I ended up basically removing a collar, and then I folded the new neckline down to make a new collar I liked better. Rolled up the sleeves, did a little stitches to stitch everything down, and upcycle. Ta-da! We'll see how today's projects go. I'll definitely walk you through the process, show you what I'm doing and what works and what doesn't work, and see if you get inspired. Maybe to try a little upcycling of your own. If you're interested, I do have a playlist here on my channel too that will show you a bunch of the projects I've done, just to give you a few more ideas. Let's get started by showing you some of the pieces we're working with. Let's get started. You guys, this skirt is amazing, and it has taken me far too long to work on it. It has been sitting in my mending pile for forever, as you can tell by the crazy wrinkles and such. But looking beyond the wrinkles, look at this amazing print. Oh my gosh, this is a retro skirt. I think it's from the 80s, quite possibly. It has airplanes and boats on it. And it is full and swirly, and it is silk. Yes, washable silk. So a gorgeous piece to work with, and it is really special because my aunt gave this to me. She and I both really love bright colors and bold prints and just fun, colorful things. And so she loved this and wore it back in the day, and then passed it on to me to see if I would use it for a refashioning project. And of course, I had to do that. So thank you, Any Mug. Thank you for the inspiration. Thank you for loving bright colors and crazy prints too. You empowered me to love them too. Even if other people say they're ugly. Love what you love, right? Yeah, love what you love. Anyway, you guys, I'm going to do a little close-up here in a moment so we can take a look at what we're going to do. Since this is silk and I'm learning what to do with tricky fabrics, I'm hoping to keep this as simple as possible. The elastic waistband at the top is totally gone. It's just absolutely stretched out. So we have to remove that. I'm hoping to add just a little tube of fabric at the top of the skirt, insert elastic into that, and then I also need to fix some of the side seams which are starting to fray a little bit. So hopefully just, remove the elastic, add a waistband casing at the top, fix those side seams, and I'm hoping that will be just about all we got to do. Let's take a look up close. Okay, guys, I've got the skirt inside out. We're taking a peek on the inside. Here's the tag. How fun is that? Ooh, it's 20% cotton. Okay, that's cool. Hand wash. Awesome. That's my style, guys. Seriously, if a vintage, like 80s piece is dry clean only, I think twice about it, because I'm kind of lazy. I don't tend to dry clean, but hand wash I can do. Oh man, I'm loving the print. Oh my gosh, this is so much fun. Look at the colors. You may not be able to see it in my shady living room here, but it's kind of a royal blue and like a tomato red with the yellow and the turquoise, as my aunt would say. It is very turquoise. We do have some seams here in the skirt. So we have like a back seam and side seams, and then we've got this kind of cool, like, is this almost like a drop waist seam going around the top? No, I don't know. That's really cool. I'm actually really hoping to use this top panel of fabric and just use that as a casing for the elastic. Like, let's seam rip the elastic off of here very carefully, of course. Thank goodness this is, looks like it's just sewn on with a single line of stitching. See that black thread? I think that's all that's attaching the elastic. Whew, thank goodness. And of course the top is serged. Thank goodness. Let's just use this band of fabric. Once the elastic is gone, let's fold this over to make like a wide tube, and then I'll insert some really wide elastic. I think I've got some like 2-inch or 1.5-inch elastic. We'll insert that into the tube, and hopefully that will mean I don't have to modify the skirt too much, just getting rid of the elastic and making a tube. Oh, also, I did notice, just kind of looking at some of the seams on the inside, it's a little hard to see, but some of the seams near the top are a little fray. Yeah, sorry, hard to see, guys, but you can see it from the outside of the garment. So I think once the elastic is gone, I'll try to kind of maybe just re-sew the side seam and then kind of just work it into the existing seam. So just kind of like taking the top in just a tiny bit to make a new seam and fix that fraying bit. And then hopefully that'll work. I don't know. Sometimes refashions can look really simple and then get complicated. I'm hoping this won't get that way. I think my first step is to get out my seam ripper, get really zen, and very carefully cut this off, or well, unpick the seams and get the elastic off. I will show you what that looks like when we've got that done. Wow, you guys, I ironed the skirt. It's not perfectly ironed, of course, but wow, this is a lot of skirt. I think it is basically a circle skirt. I mean, it does have some seams, so it's not just cut out as a circle, but wow, this is awesome. That's a lot of fabric. That's so cool. Okay, let's see what we gotta do next. Okay, so you can tell this is like that top band of the skirt. We're going to be using this to make a tube for the elastic. I mean, originally, you know, the elastic waistband was sewn up to the top here, but we're going to use this fabric to make a tube. I unpicked the elastic. See if we can focus in a little bit better. Sorry about that. Thankfully, the top edge of the skirt is serged, so we're definitely going to be making use of that. Yeah, so we got a little bit of the fraying here at the very top, so I'm going to need to probably just sew the side seam in a little bit there to take care of that. I'm going to do that on both sides. And then you might notice I've kind of drawn a bit of a pen line up here. It's hard to see. Sorry, because the pen line is technically like blue on blue. But this pen line is showing me where I'm going to want to roll down this serged edge, and I'm going to want to iron it. I think my line going around here is about 3/4 of an inch down. So once I roll this, the little folded under rolled ironed edge is going to be about 3/8 of an inch. I would make that bigger if I could, but theoretically speaking, let's say we iron down this top serged edge to get kind of a nice finished edge. Then I'm going to want to pin this to this other cool seam that we have going around here. It would be really nice if I could kind of blend my stitching for this new waistband into the existing stitching. That would be super cool. And then of course we'll have this cool tube, which I think is going to be just big enough to fit some really wide elastic that I've got that'll go in there. So yeah, we'll just be making a tube all the way around the top of the skirt. I've got to do a little ironing here first so that we can make a nice finished edge here. And then I'll pin this all the way around, except for, of course, I'll have to leave a little gap for the elastic. Oh, just a note, you guys, about fabric. Since this is silk and I have so much to learn about fancy, shiny fabrics, I did a little research, and I will link to the blog post I found from one of my favorite sewing YouTubers and bloggers called Melly Sews. She had a really cool post on working with fancy fabrics, and I'm going to try to put some of her tips to use. Using some of the things I have, hopefully they will work. She was recommending using some sharp, thin needles for your sewing machine. These are the ones that I have. We'll see if they work. She was also mentioning using some thin little pins, and these are the thinnest ones that I have. I don't think they're exactly the ones that were mentioned in the article, but I'm going to try it, and we'll see if these things help working with this really awesome silk fabric. Okay guys, so we ran into a bit of a snag here while pinning our new waistband on, because, should have seen this coming, the top of the skirt is definitely a shorter distance than this kind of middle point of the skirt, because the skirt is flaring outwards. So there's more fabric here than there is here. So to kind of deal with that, you can tell here I'm looking at kind of the middle of the skirt. Thankfully there were panels that helped me figure out, okay, this is the center, these are the side seams. Okay, so I've pinned a bunch of the fabric here in the front and then also in the back. But then I've got like all this extra fabric starting to bunch up over here on the side. So it's a little bit hard to see. Let's move that. Whoop. I ran a few inches of gathering stitches here, just at the side seams. I think I did about 3 inches on each side of the side seam. And then I just, you know, pulled on my lower thread. I used big stitches and tried to gather it in just a little bit, so that then when I'm folding over my waistband, hopefully I can, you know, kind of adjust those gathers and get some of the excess fabric to kind of hide itself away. I'm hoping. I'm going to play around with those gathers and those pins, and we'll see if it works. If it does work, I'm going to sew all the way around, leaving a little bit of a gap, and then I'll be ready to insert the elastic. Oh, and by the way, of course I did iron under this edge so that I'm kind of pinning that nicely finished edge all the way around. Here we go. I was gifted these two men's shirts by my husband. He has actually a few of these, and he doesn't really wear them, and was wondering if, we could give them to anybody or if I could do anything with them. I don't think they would fit anyone that I know particularly well, but I have actually tried wearing one of these shirts. They're definitely a boxy fit on me, but I noticed that the fabric is rayon and it's very flowy and very cool to wear when, the temperatures are a little wonky. And I thought, gee, can I transform these into something that I could, wear a little bit more than an oversized men's shirt? Because I like them, but can I make them even more wearable for me? Since I have two of the same style, but slightly different colors, one navy and one kind of a cobalt, that means I have a bunch of fabric I could work with. I think we definitely have some potential here. I have tried on the shirts, though, and played around with the sizing. I did notice that the fabric, covering the bust area isn't actually that much too big. It's interesting. The shirt looks very oversized, but let me show you. Kind of the bust area is right about here. And it's not that much too big. It's interesting. Some of the sleeves cut in a lot. And so the sleeves actually help make up the booble area here. One of my first ideas was to maybe cut off the sleeves, but I don't think I can do that because I kind of need the fabric. I mean, in order to, have a lot of range of motion and things like that, I need that. So, I'm going to need to keep at least some of the sleeves. What else can I do with this, though? Let's say we keep one shirt like a shirt. And what if we use another shirt to add extra fabric and make it into a dress? Let me double check you guys can see that okay. Yeah, there we go. I know it looks a little weird. It would definitely be kind of oversized and boxy and such, but I think it could work. Definitely have to play with this. Another thing I'll still work with, though, is the shirt definitely looks big and it looks boxy. One reason is it is kind of big in the shoulders and the sleeves are, kind of long and stuff. I'm wondering if I could maybe sew some elastic into the shoulders and like scrunch some of the fabric in a little bit. I don't know, maybe that would mean I'm not cutting off any fabric because I need the fabric, but I could kind of make it scrunch a little bit so it's not quite so big in the shoulders. Then I will probably need to shorten yield sleeves a bit. Maybe add like a belt. Maybe I should also add like a stripe of the navy at the bottom. I don't know. That is the basic idea rolling around in my brain. Will it work? I don't know. I think I want to look at maybe getting some elastic in those shoulders maybe first, just kind of play around to see if I can make that work, and then we'll work on possibly adding the other shirt and turning it into a skirt. Let's get started. Well, we interrupt this shoulder adjustment because I'm tackling the bottom of the shirts first. Just because, why not? So I'm planning on using this navy blue shirt as the top of the dress, but at the sides, there are these little like open flaps. So I could either like sew that side slit closed, Or I'm thinking, and you can kind of tell what I'm doing down here, I'm thinking of cutting off the bottom several inches. I think it's about 5 inches, a little bit more than that, that makes this little flap. And then sewing that maybe to the bottom of the dress, you know, after I've sewn the brighter blue shirt. I don't know. We'll see. You can tell down here I've got a whole bunch of pins. I've got my quilter's ruler and some chalk to try to make sure I'm measuring a nice straight line going across. I think with the blue shirt, I'm going to do something similar, but I'm actually going to probably cut off the blue shirt like right under the arms. Oops, sorry, going out of focus. Hang on. Blue shirt. Hey, blue shirt. Yeah, I think I just want to use like the bottom rectangle for added skirt length. So I'll probably just measure from underarm to underarm, mark that as a straight line, and cut that off. Then I can sew that new piece of bright blue fabric to my newly minted cut off clean hem for the dark shirt and hopefully make kind of a cool skirt. We'll see. Let's get to cutting. Oh man. Okay. So if I cut from underarm seam to underarm seam, I'm going to go right across this pocket. Is that going to be a problem? I don't know. Maybe I can just unpick the stitching around the pocket and take the fabric off and not have it show too much that there was a pocket there. I don't know. I really want as much length of this shirt as I can for my new skirt. So, okay, we'll cut it off and we'll try it. have a skirt that is stitched to the top. You guys saw me pinning the bright blue skirt to the dark blue top. I stitched those together and then did a super similar process, stitching this bottom kind of stripe onto the bottom as well. A couple things I've done just off camera are I did a zigzag stitch over any and all raw edges to try to keep this rayon from fraying like crazy. I also decided that the side slits were a little too long, so I ended up opening this now nicely finished edge. I had to kind of open up this nicely rolled and stitched seam allowance, stitch the original seam, which is here, stitch it close a little bit more, and then roll those raw edges again to make kind of a nice finished-ish edge for my side slits. And then, hey, let's take a peek at this. Take a peek at this. I also did a little top stitching. You'll be able to see better from the front of the garment, but this top line of stitching, that is the seam holding the top of the dress to the skirt. I then folded the seam allowance, you know, this extra fabric here, folded it downward, pinned it, and then I stitched across the top, of course from the other side of the garment. I did a little stitching there to try to keep that seam allowance pointing downwards. I also did that just down here on the bottom stripe. Not totally necessary, but I thought it would help the garment just feel nicer and drape a little nicer. Let's look at the front. And here we have the garment from, well, the front of the garment. Right sides out. Let's take a little peek here. Sorry, we're having a hard time focusing today here, guys. But you can see this little extra line of stitching. That's the top stitching that holds that seam allowance pointing downwards. So that's in place. I also did a little bit of stitching the button placket closed on the bright blue layer. I just did that because, well, I don't need those buttons to function, and I don't like wardrobe malfunctions. So let's close up those buttons so they don't accidentally open later. I did stitch like kind of as close to the edge as I could, and then I ended up stopping my stitching kind of right about here. That leaves like a little front slit, little front flap, which kind of coordinates with the little side slits on the side. Okay, it's time to talk shoulders. You might notice the top of the shirt looks a little wonky. I've been trying an experiment. I was testing out my idea of sewing some elastic into that shoulder seam right at the top of the shoulder. I have a little piece of elastic on the inside, and I gathered the fabric on the outside to that little piece of elastic, and it really took in the shoulders. I mean, look at that shoulder seam compared to this one. Let's take a look at that. Yeah, I shrunk it in. I actually tried the shirt or the dress on, and if I do this to the other side, the shoulders should actually go from being totally huge and boxy to basically fitting my shoulders. I may still have to like roll or cuff the sleeves a little bit. They may still look a little too long, but I think this is gonna work. So let's turn this garment inside out. I'll show you what the one side that I've done looks like, and then we'll try tackling the other side. Okay, well, here we are looking at the inside of the shirt. Let's take a little peek at that elastic. Yep, it's just a little piece. The elastic is about as long as half of the total shoulder seam length. And you can see I rolled the edges of the elastic under, so that's nicely finished. And I did stitches that took up a little bit of the elastic, but it took up a lot of the shirt fabric. You can tell that ruffled the shirt fabric to the elastic, and I just stitched the elastic right along the shoulder seam. The seam is like right under there. I tried to do stitches that wouldn't show too much on the other side. And then of course I stitched the edges or the ends of the elastic down as well so that those were secure. Let's take a look at the other side. I've already kind of started this guy. So here is my shoulder seam. We're going to be stitching this on right over the top. I've already rolled the edge of my elastic down. I did a few little stitches on just the elastic, and then I stitched the elastic to the shirt. And I'm going to be ready to stitch that along, gathering that shirt fabric to the elastic all the way to the edge of the collar right there. So let's take a little peek at that up close. Okay, so I'm sorry that my camera's having a really tough time focusing, but we're going to do our best. I've started doing some little stitches on this new shoulder and taking up as much of that shirt fabric as I could. I'll show you what I'm doing. Once you guys try this, you'll get the hang of it. Okay, so I've taken a little stitch in my elastic. I didn't go very far. But then I want to go a little farther on my shoulder seam. I'm probably going to go maybe about 1/2 inch or so down my shoulder seam before I take a stitch, because I want to use up that fabric. Okay, taking a little stitch. I don't want it to show up too much on the other side of the shirt, but ooh, hey, as I go to take another kind of small close together, whoa, stitch on my elastic, look, kind of like has gathered up the shirt a little bit. I keep kind of pulling on it, letting that happen. Also trying to let the camera focus. Okay, we'll keep going. Small stitch in the elastic. And then I'm gonna go about 1/2 inch down the shoulder seam. Taking little stitches. Oop, and pulling the shirt fabric. Oh, look. There it goes. It's ruffling. I've used the same idea in waistbands. Like if you have a skirt or a pair of pants that almost fits, but not quite, you can kind of fudge it a little bit by stitching in some elastic to kind of shrink that waistband in a little bit, but still make it stretchy. So yeah, I've tried this before. If you do this and you end up, you know, getting one shoulder gathered more than the other or whatnot, it's okay to, you know, take it out and do it a couple times. I know sometimes I don't get them as even as I like, but the more I kind of do this whole process, it gets a little easier to make make it even, to make your, you know, stitches an even distance apart. Okay, I'm sorry. Thanks for bearing with me with the camera coming in and out of focus, but you can tell we're making progress. Let's switch over to time lapse and finish this thing up. Well, guys, I took the remaining part of the bright blue shirt and went to town with my rotary cutter and chopped it up into a whole bunch of strips. And I think my strips are about 5 inches wide, and I just made them as long as they could be symmetrically. That's kind of all that's left of the shirt over there. So I got quite a few little pieces out of this, and I think what I'm going to do is sew them end to end, and then fold them in half and sew a really long tube, turn that tube right side out, sew the ends closed, and call it a belt. Yeah, it's going to be a little scrappy looking, maybe a little, like, unsymmetrical, because I have a bunch of pieces that kind of have some, like, seams and stuff in them, and I could cut them down so that they're all symmetrical and stuff, but I don't know if I really need to. I don't know. I'll play around with it, see how long it actually ends up being. Maybe I don't need all the length. We'll see. But I think that will be our belt. Well, you guys, we're getting pretty close. We got some shoulder adjustment happening. We got a skirt on there. We got, wow, we got a dress. Okay, a few more things I want to do. I want to use some remnant fabric to make a belt. Kind of rein in a little of the boxiness, just a bit. I also think I want to maybe roll little cuffs on the short sleeves. Maybe just tack those down a little bit. Let me show you what I'm talking about. Yeah, why don't I just take this existing, like, cuff and kind of roll it outwards, maybe, like, twice. Iron it down, you know, pin it. And then I could just do, like, a couple of stitches, like, at the bottom and then at the top. Just to hold it in place. Just to kind of rein in those sleeves just a little bit. And then I think we'll be pretty close. I'm glad because the weather coming up is going to be super hot. Ay, so I think this will be a really great thing to be able to wear. But while I'm stitching, you guys, it's a great time for you to hit that like button. If you get behind the whole upcycle concept, definitely let me know if you've tried some upcycles recently and what your ideas are. I can't wait to wear this thing. So I'm going to get back to sewing, and I'll show you what it all looks like when we're done.